Hey all, welcome back to my channel. And this video is a part two of the series that I started, titled Jealousy Towards Attractive Dark-Skinned African Women. And the reason why I started this series is because I have been seeing a trend of successful dark-skinned African women who most of the times most of these women come from East Africa. And I see that when people talk about their success, a lot of them don't really highlight the hard work and the work ethic that was involved in attaining that success. Instead, they attribute that success to how they somehow appeal to Western beauty standards, and they have quote unquote Eurocentric features. So I wanted to highlight that because I am also from East Africa as well, and I'm also a dark-skinned woman. So that's why I am doing this series to essentially bring awareness and start conversations that are not being had. So today I'm talking about Lupita Nyong'o. So as many of you are aware, Lupita Nyong'o is a Kenyan woman. She was born in Mexico, but she is originally from Kenya, and she is a Luo woman in terms of ethnicity. And she is also an award-winning actress. Um, the movies that she has appeared on, to name a few, 12 Years a Slave, Us, Black Panther, and that's just to name a few. But she has many, many accolades. She has won many awards due to her being incredibly talented and an amazing actress and a hard worker. So, as I said, some people are saying that and having conversations online, mostly online, about how a big part of her success is due to how she appeals to quote unquote the white audience. And this is due to, again, her looks, her features, her facial features, similar to the other video that I made about Angela. They as people are saying, the people who are having these conversations are saying that Lupita's features are smaller. And again, I want to touch on this specific rhetoric because she is from Kenya. And again, a woman like her, of her complexion, there's even some tribal undertone as well, which I'll touch up on later on. She is not seen as like the standard of beauty, right? She is like I said, she is a part of the Luo tribe in Kenya. And they are known for being pretty successful and pretty proud people as well. But specifically for the women, or when it comes to beauty politics, they and this is not my opinion, this is just what I have observed, they are not seen as like they're at the top of the beauty hierarchy. And this is something that a lot of people do not talk about in regards to Lupita. And in terms of her experiences with colorism, because she has talked about many times about the colorism that she has faced before she became famous and during her being famous. And that's why I want to talk about it, because the people who are having these conversations about her having smaller features and her being more palatable, you have to understand that your worldview, as the worldview, is not the same as everyone else, and you can't take what you think and see and apply it to everyone else. Because where I'm from, and generally in East Africa, her features aren't that small. I'll be so honest with you guys. Her features are not that small. And I think with the case with Lupita, um, she had to move environments from an environment that usually wouldn't have appreciated her, especially like for instance in Kenya, like for instance in the Kenyan entertainment industry. If she was still in that industry and tried to engage and come up and build her name through that entertainment industry in Kenya, had would have she have gotten so far as she has now? That is a question that needs to be asked, because again, it's colorism is rife in Africa, especially I would say in East Africa as well. And I'm only saying this because again, I am from that region, so I understand like the dynamics in that region and the different communities that are typically affected. So yeah, so with the case with Lupita, it's not that she has smaller features and she looks more palatable. She essentially has worked her way up and worked her way up into an environment that actually has appreciates her craft, appreciates her work. And of course, yes, she is a beautiful woman. And it's no secret that in Hollywood, beautiful women are sought after, right? And is she beautiful solely because she has quote unquote smaller features? In my opinion, I do not think so. And again, I do want to continue to preface this by saying, of course, featureism exists, right? Of course, in the Western beauty standards, the Western ideals of beauty, smaller and keener features are more favored. However, I do not think that Lupita is uh, subjected to that. I don't think she's a subject to that. But you can disagree with me, and that's fine. I would like to know what you think in the comments below, because it's something that is important to be spoken about. So yeah. And I also want to talk about how, there have been videos about how a lot of like opportunities and in terms of representation for dark-skinned women are given to women who are darker skinned, especially from Africa, and who are deemed as exotic, more exotic than, for instance, Western Black people or African descendants, like African Americans, for example. And I've seen this talk, and I understand where they're coming from. However, I think that the conversation has to be directed towards who are the people who are putting these that are misrepresenting a specific group of people. Like, who are the powers and authorities that are doing such things because they're clearly doing it on purpose, right? So I think instead of um, using these African women, dark skinned African women like Lupita, who have made a name for themselves, using them as a scapegoat to essentially express your discontentment about you not getting the correct representation. I would say challenge the people, the authorities who are not representing you properly. Or you can create your own representation and start and build your own networks where you get to put what you want to see and what you want your audience to see. And because everyone deserves to have their own space, their own spaces, and again, I can understand why some women may feel like excluded, and they may see like in the mainstream media, it's typically dark-skinned women with specific features. Again, I don't see these features as small because where I'm from, it's not considered small. But I guess this poses another question as to how do you determine what is a small feature and a big feature, right? Because I think it's pretty subjective depending on the person who is talking about it. Maybe Lupita has smaller features compared to people from, um, I guess, Central Africa, perhaps, but Western Africa. But I can guarantee that I can probably find her features in those areas of Africa too, and so and in the Caribbeans um and the Americas. So yeah, but and then I find it also interesting how again they use women like Lupita as a scapegoat to again complain about how they're not getting the representation that they want, um, but will put more ambiguous looking people with who typically have a black admixture or African descent admixture, and they would be accepted um, to be represented and be the face of representation for dark skinned black women or also just black women in general when we all know majority of black women, majority of unambiguous black women do not look ambiguous, hence why the term unambiguous black women, black people, or just the term unambiguous exists, right? You saying that you are unambiguous or calling someone unambiguous, unambiguously black, just essentially means that you can tell that they literally have no admixture. Like you wouldn't mistake them for anything but black or of African descent. So there is a level of hypocrisy there because you're fine someone who does not represent you, doesn't represent your phenotype, but because they have some black admixture, you feel some sort of connection to them. But someone who comes from a different part of Africa, who may have different culture, who is still dark skinned and who's still unambiguous and who still actually wears natural hair and actually likes their natural state, you have a problem with that because somehow they do not fit your ideal typical African look that you are used to. So again, Hollywood in general is not controlled by dark-skinned women, especially African women. It's not like they're putting themselves on a pedestal like themselves. I think in general you should put yourself on a pedestal because you want to be able to achieve big things, and you really need to believe in yourself to be able to achieve those things in general. That's just like part of life. Um, but again, if you really want to be mad at someone for the misrepresentation, you need to be mad at the people who are behind the screens, who are making the decisions and picking who can star on this film and who can represent such community, the powers that may be that we don't really see, but they're there. So, yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that and touch on that because it's something that again keeps on popping up, and Lupita's name pops up quite a bit, especially when talking about um dark skinned black women and representation. I'm talking about like palatability to the Western world. Um, I do also want to continue mentioning that again, when you have these conversations, you are discrediting their hard work, and the toil that they had to go through to get to the position that they are in. Lupita, not only is she an amazing actress, but she's also an author. She is incredibly accomplished, and she has a children's book called Salue, and it's about a dark-skinned girl who wanted to be lighter skinned, but goes through a self acceptance and self love journey where she ends up liking her skin tone, ends up liking herself, and ends up loving herself in the end. And I think that things like that need to be promoted more because a lot of like the self-esteem issues that darker skinned women experience, especially darker skinned people in general, men and women, a lot of them start from when they are children. And if we have more um, media that highlights the importance of self acceptance and from an early age, things will be a lot more better, especially for darker skinned people, and especially when navigating the world when they're older. So that is what I wanted to touch on today. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.